Yo, what's up? My name is Petrowski MTG, and if you don't look at the leaning boxes of MTG, it won't fall. But on a serious note, I've been playing Magic the Gathering on and off since 2013, and I understand it is a game for all types of people in all ages. So getting together a list of 50 tips for new Magic players can be a bit tricky, but I'm hoping that there is something here for everyone, whether you are a straight collector, a deck builder, a commander player, a standard player, a competitive serious player, a casual kitchen table player. The goal was to make this as general as possible so as many people could benefit from it as possible, but also help specific types of players. The TLDR is that not every single tip is going to be for everyone, but if you find something helpful here today, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And if you don't, if none of these tips are helpful, dislike and call me smelly in the comments. All right, but let's just go ahead and jump into our list with tip number 1. And this is an obvious one you'll hear from every Magic player you will ever meet. Do not buy packs, buy singles. Buying sealed product, opening packs, it is just gambling. It is just something you do for entertainment. If you want to pay a certain amount of money to have fun and not get back that value or not get cards that you plan to play, that is totally okay. I think opening packs for entertainment, think of it as paying for a movie ticket, right? If you want to go pay 20 bucks to go see a movie, that's an hour of your time, whatever, awesome. Same with opening packs, but it is terrible value and you will always lose money in the long run, and even the short term you usually lose money. And I think this is the best way to show the a physical example. You could buy a booster box of Core Set 2020 for $124, or you could buy every single card that is worth over $5 in the set, including shipping costs, for $10 less at $116. It is literally cheaper to buy every card over $5 in the set than buy a booster box where you will not get this value back. You will get a random distribution of cards. You will not get good cards, and that's including a copy of Field of the Dead, which is $35 on its own right. I know it's not as fun or as flashy, but financially it's not even close, and you will thank yourself in the long run. You could complete the entire set essentially for $116, or have an hour's or less of fun for $123. Now, I do think it's okay. I think every Magic player should experience opening a booster box at one point in their life. I think that's relevant to say, but don't make it a habit is what I would recommend. All right, now tip number 2 is not going to be for everybody. If you are short on time, well, while you're playing Magic, this game takes a lot of time, but if you're short on time, it may not be for you. If you don't have a local shop, it may not be for you. But sifting through your bulk at your local store, not everybody's going to have a local store. Not every store is going to have access to this, but certain stores might have big white boxes like this, just full of bulk and full of whatever cards, and if you ask them nicely, they might allow you to just look through it and buy certain cards for a nickel or a dime or just really small amounts of money. And not only does it help you build a selected amount of cards that you want for your collection, for your personal deck, whether casual, commander, whatever format you're playing, it also gets you way more familiar with cards. I attribute so much of my Magic knowledge due to the fact that I used to help my local store sort through cards. I would help them sort. I would just sort through them in my downtime. I looked through so many Magic cards of all different years, of all different sets, and I just never stopped reading. I never stopped reading cards. I never stopped looking through them, and it just, you learn so much. You just start soaking up information like a sponge. And if you have the time, if you have the interest, if you want to be one of the best Magic players or just have a lot of fun, if you're enjoying the hobby, even if you don't want to be one of the best, if you want to just know a lot about the hobby, sorting through cards constantly, learning the names of cards, learning effects, learning old mechanics that may not exist anymore, sorting through bulk is just such a blast, in my opinion. Such a fun way for new players, in my personal opinion, to learn a bunch of new cards and new things. And you could even do it for free. Yes, you can like buy bulk on eBay, but I don't usually recommend that. Maybe doing that once as a new player is probably fine. I would never buy bulk more than once, in my opinion. As a new player, once, if you want to learn some new cards, sure. But generally, you can just go to your local store and do this for free. It's free information. It just takes time. Now, maybe you don't have a local store, or maybe you don't want to deal with all the physicality of the cards. I personally like flicking through physical cards, but that is not for everybody. Instead, you could head over to this website called Scryfall and hit this button right here, random card, which will take you to a random Magic card, and you can just do this over and over and over again. Click random up there in the top right, random, and just learn a bunch of new Magic cards. This is not for everybody. This is the equivalent of like reading the dictionary to learn words, and some people really like learning that way and others don't. This is not the most efficient way to learn Magic, but it is one of the most in-depth ways, in my personal opinion. Next up, tip number 3 is going to be to find which local store is best for you. And this is one of the tougher ones, honestly, because you got to physically get out there. You have to drive to local stores. I recommend even driving to stores that are within like an hour of you, but it depends. You know, maybe you don't want to drive an hour to your favorite store, but having a favorite Magic store is a really special thing. Having that community that welcomes new players, but also is really experienced. And we want to look for some Magic shops are just going to be people who got into the hobby because they wanted to make some money and they thought they loved it, but then they open a shop and they realize how much hard work it is and the passion dies. I've seen this happen so many times, but there are so many stores as well who are owned by people who have been playing Magic for 20, 30 years, who still love the game, still loved helping customers find those cards. There are a lot of people who like want nothing more than to teach new players and to help them find the cards they need, and those are the best stores you want to look for. Don't be afraid to go around to local stores, ask them like, hey, what's the community like how many new players do you guys get in, what are the other local stores around, ask them how they feel about that. A really big thing is you'll find that it's kind of hard, in my experience, my opinion, to find local Magic stores. A lot of local Magic stores are still up and coming or small. They might only be on Facebook, or they might not be on Google or Google reviews. So it can be really difficult to literally find a concrete list of local stores near you. So asking people around, asking people to shop. Be respectful though. You don't want to because at the end of the day, they are competitors. You don't want to walk into a Walmart and be like, hey, how do you feel about Target? You can't okay, well, wait a minute, dude. Right time, right place. Let them know you're new. Don't never be afraid to tell another Magic player you're new. That's really important. And then just ask them earnestly, hey, I'm looking for a new shop to be my shop. What do you guys think about every place around? What's the positives and negatives? Next up is tip 3.5, because I had to find a spot for it somewhere. Okay, almost never buy Magic cards and buy product from Walmart, Target, these superstores. And not just for the reason people say, oh, support your local shops, and you do want to support your local shops, but that's not even the only reason. It's just more expensive. Buying cards, buying product at Walmart, Target is almost always more expensive than buying from other shops. We'll do a few examples here. Here is the Spider-Man bundle for $70 on Walmart, and oh yeah, it's knocked down from $80. What a good deal, right? Well, no, over on TCGplayer it's actually $67. I know it's only a few dollars, but that's a big difference when you're supporting a smaller business as well as just getting a better price for yourself. And this is just online. Usually at physical stores it's even worse. Here's the new Spider-Man pre-release, for example, the new Spider-Man set, the pre-release kit, that is $50 on Walmart.com, or $40, a $10 difference over on TCGplayer. Not only are you supporting local stores once again, but you're also just getting a better price. There is almost never any reason to buy sealed products like this or any Magic products from Walmart or Target. It is usually people who are doing that who just don't know any better. These are, or don't have a local shop. Either you don't have access to a local shop, but even then, buy on TCGplayer. TCGplayer is the better, probably the best that most people go by, the best Magic the Gathering online marketplace. If you have friends that are buying from Walmart and Target, try to let them know nicely, hey guys, it's not, there are better deals. Don't be mean and rude. Oh, you're stupid for buying there. People just don't know. This is still a hobby that a lot of people, that information isn't spread as far as it should be. Next up, tip number 4 is gonna be to play MTG Arena. It's not the best Magic, option by any means. There's not really a perfect online Magic client, in my opinion, but it is a fantastic, great beginner's tool, a great way to learn the basics and the mechanics of the game in a physical way where it'll show you visually. If you're a visual learner, I think MTG Arena is great. It's entirely free to play, and I recommend playing it mostly free to play. If you want to get the $5 intro pack welcome bundle, sure. I do not recommend spending almost any money on Arena. If you can afford it, do whatever you want to, but it's better to build up a physical collection generally, or if you're going to build a digital collection, do it on MTGO. Obviously there are outliers. If all your friends play on Arena, more power to you guys, have fun, but on average I would say don't spend money building an MTG Arena collection. Just play the game, have fun, do your daily quests, get the gold. It's a great intro to Magic, and also a great way to draft for free if you can play well enough. And that's going to bleed into my tip number 5, which is to practice drafting on MTG Arena before you go to a physical draft. Drafting on MTG Arena, I think it's the best part of it. I think getting some good quick drafts in, eventually trying to do a premier draft before going and doing a physical draft will really teach you what an actual draft looks like, where you're going through and you are passing packs to another. When you're quick drafting, you're not actually passing physical packs. They're all randomly generated and they're passed around to bots. The drafting experience is very, very different. Whereas with the Premier Draft, not only are you drafting a deck, which if you don't know, draft is a format where you basically open 3 packs and you pull cards from those packs and then build a 40 card deck, the best deck you can out of those that very limited pull from a set. And sets are created and balanced with draft and limited formats like that in mind. If you can get good at arena draft, it will help you a ton when you go physically draft, which is really the best way to open Magic cards if you want to open cards, and just a fantastic format. I cannot recommend draft enough for new players. It is intimidating. It is very intimidating. It's scary, but you'll learn it very, very quickly and become a pro pretty quickly. But in that same vein of spending as little money to build your MTG Arena collection, I would even recommend making like 2 accounts. If you're a big grinder, if you know you get really obsessed into hobbies like I may do, go ahead and make 2 MTG Arena accounts, and you can log into those 2 accounts every day, do your quests. Even if you're not that good at drafting, if you're going to be doing quests on like 2 accounts like that, if you have the time for that, you can basically go infinite in drafts, even if you just go like 3 and 3, or like you don't get that many wins. And don't expect to get that many wins in your first couple drafts. You know, it ends up taking, if you can end up averaging like 5 wins a draft, you end up going infinite from the gems and then the coins from your quests. But that can be really difficult to achieve. That's taken me years and years to be able to go infinite like that. And then even sometimes I have a couple bad drafts where I go 0-3, and that's a big gut punch, and then all of a sudden you're reset back. So just give it time and rebuild sometimes with your MTG Arena currency. And then next up for tip number 6, we have another physical tip. I recommend buying as much of the same color of sleeves as you can. So I actually have 2 packs of white sleeves here, and these are cheaper sleeves. I do recommend buying better sleeves if you can. I strongly recommend Dragon Shield Matte. I am not sponsored by them. I will never forget when Dragon Shield Mattes came out and they just changed the game. They are by far the best sleeves in my opinion. They feel really good. They shuffle really nice. They're really sturdy. They're about like 10 to 13 bucks a pack. So they are kind of pricey per 100 sleeves, but when you start getting more expensive cards or nicer cards, you gotta protect those cards. I cannot recommend it enough. But the reason you want to get as much of the like same color sleeve as possible is because the more decks you build, it's just easier to switch cards in and out. You don't want to have to buy multiples of every type of card. It's easier to switch cards in and out. If a sleeve rips or breaks, which does happen over time, it's easier to replace. It just makes things way, way easier to all have the same color of sleeve. Now, that's not always fun. That's the efficiency, right? That's the efficiency brain, and some people are going to want the efficiency information. I want to spread that information out there, but make the decision that best fits your needs. If you're going to be happier knowing that your blue deck is in a blue sleeves and that your green deck is in green sleeves, go do that. Don't let efficiency override your fun. Fun is the most important thing. But some people, I want people to have the information and you be able to make that decision that works the best for you. But for sleeve quality, I totally recommend starting off with these are really cheap sleeves available on Amazon. This is one of those things. There are a few things like this you can buy online versus at a local shop. Dragon Shield Mattes, I have a better time buying at shops. Every shop's gonna have a different price depending on their distributor. I find I get cheaper Dragon Shield Mattes at shops rather than online, but I do get these sleeves way cheap on Amazon, and that is a really nice way for beginners to get a bunch of sleeves for super cheap. And I think it's worth it in my opinion when you're starting out. And then next up, tip number 7, still on the same vein of sleeve conversation. I do really recommend even new players investing in at least one pack of perfect fit sleeves. These are different types of sleeves. There are overcoat sleeves that, the normal sleeves that go like this, and there are perfect fit sleeves. And perfect fit sleeves do exactly what they sound like. They perfectly fit around the card. They are always clear like this. There are also penny sleeves, but I don't recommend those. I would just get perfect fits. They're a little more expensive usually, but you can find this pack is super cheap on Amazon. Once again, this brand Mikaro is like the Milkaro, I don't know, Mikaro. It's really cheap on Amazon. I recommend it. I use these for foils. They really prevent foils from curling. That's really important. They're perfect for foils and any expensive cards. If you're playing casual Magic, it's totally fine to double sleeve a random card in your deck for the most part. You can ask if people mind it, but if you are playing competitive, let it be known you can't just have one card in your deck double sleeved. That is against the rules. That will get you deck checked. But if you're playing casual Commander, for example, I play Legacy. It's one of my favorite formats. I play a lot of Legacy, and I will often switch cards in my Legacy decks over to Commander, and I'll double sleeve all my Legacy cards and then kind of switch them out. That's how I know, like, oh, these cards that are double sleeved in my Commander decks are actually Legacy cards. I can switch them back to those decks quickly, and it's just casual Commander. Like, I don't really notice the thickness. If I wanted to cheat, I could try to, I guess, but it's not something you're really going to physically notice when you're playing, but it is against the rules. Just keep that in mind, but it's something you can do, in my opinion, at a more casual setting. The TLDR is just, as your collection grows, you really do want to collect, or you want to protect your cards. Protecting your cardboard, protecting your investments, quote unquote, is really important. Next up, tip number 8, sticking to the vein of physical collection tips. I recommend picking up at least one binder. This could be something you can put your more expensive and more valuable and just pieces of your collection in, or like even when you're new, just like bulk rares and stuff like that, or like whatever fun cards you want to put in there. There are all different types of binders. This is my like EDH, like pretty playable cards for the most part, or just like fun playable cards that I enjoy. This is like kind of more bulk rare stuff, and you can get all different types. You don't need a super expensive binder off the bat. In fact, I don't recommend getting a super expensive binder off the bat. Getting these like ultra pro binders are super serviceable for a fair amount of time. Like, eventually you might want to upgrade to something fancy like a zip binder that lets you store like more expensive cards once you really build your collection. But as a beginner, I wouldn't worry about it. I do really like these like these rows of 4, because in Magic a playset of cards is 4, so having things like this is nice at a certain point. This is my Legacy binder, but just those ultra pro binders are going to do perfect. They're going to be perfect for what you need getting into the game as a new player. You can also get a binder and just put all the cards you're willing to trade in there. That's what a lot of players at least used to do. Trade binders kind of are a thing of the past. I will say they're not as common. If you have people at your local store who still want to trade, I think that's awesome. Trading is so fun, and it's a good way for you to like get equal value. Usually when you're selling your cards, whether on TCGplayer or to a shop, you're losing some percentages. If you're trading cards directly from you to another player, you can get the closest value possible and get the most fair trade for both parties. But as a new player, I would be ashamed if I didn't warn you guys, watch out for sharks. There are magic sharks. It's pretty rare, I think, but there are magic sharks who will try to snipe really valuable, good cards off of new players. It was really common growing up back where I played Magic cards, where like veteran players would always try to get fetch lands off of new players and like powerful lands, and then trade them like a bunch of bulk rares for like one fetch land. And that offer may seem enticing as a new player. This is like mostly bulk. This is like my fun bulk Commander stuff, but just be careful. Be careful who you trade with. Make sure you only trade with like people you trust and who are nice people to a decent extent, and until you really know the market and know what has value and can like hold your own. I would definitely be wary of who you trade with. Not to incur too much fear, because I do think overall the Magic community is really nice and really open and really accepting and welcoming to new players, probably more so than most communities for most hobbies. Next up, tip number 9 is to buy some sort of long box or fat pack to hold a lot of your bulk, or even eventually bulk rares or other cards. Sorry, this one's dirty. I've literally had it for so long, and I've used this for probably 10 years at this point. It's all beaten up, as you can see, the wear and tear, but it still works, man. You just need a nice white box or some sort of whatever box, whatever fat pack, whatever, you know. These white boxes are generally BCW is the brand, if I recall correctly, and these are what a lot of stores use to store a lot of their bulk, and you can usually buy them from the store for a few dollars, or they're a little bit tricky to find online, but you can find them online from their website, but usually you have to order in like large amounts. So I recommend trying to buy from a local store. That's the best place to find these. But if you can't find these, just buying a fat pack. If you're gonna buy packs or buy cards, get a fat pack, get one fat pack, and that fat pack is going to represent a way for you to store a lot of your cards. I've been using this for 10 years. It has, you know, multicolored cards, lands. I think this is all my multicolored cards, artifacts, and lands, playable, commons, and uncommons. And how you sort your cards is totally up to you. And I could even do future videos on how I sort my cards. If you're looking for ideas or tips in the future, let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. But you really only need one of these for a long time, and it will last you, like, to the size of your collection when you're growing. It'll last you for quite a while, I believe. All right, next up is tip number 10, and it's called Magic the Gathering for a reason, guys. I cannot recommend enough, if you are a new player, to talk to people at your local store. Just ask them questions. Ask what their favorite format is, what's their favorite deck, their favorite card, their favorite archetype. If you don't know, formats are basically just different ways to play Magic. I probably could have explained that sooner. Different rule sets, different ban lists using the same like card pool generally, but you'll ban certain cards out, etc., etc. But just Magic players probably love to talk about, you know, they're everyone's passion. Everybody loves this hobby for the most part. If you're playing Magic, you probably love it. They want to talk, they want to share their stories. So if you're a new player, just being a sponge and listening is one of the best things you can do. Ask Magic players how they feel about certain things, and just make sure to, you know, take everything with a grain of salt. Some Magic players might be a bit salty, you know, might be a bit more salty than others, but hear their stories, hear their favorite cards, and try to learn from that, and they can teach you a lot. And then next up, tip number 11 is to watch Magic tournaments, whether VODs of old tournaments or local ones at your store. Just be aware that if you are watching physical public tournaments, do not say anything. Be very, very quiet. Don't speak to the players. Don't speak to the surrounding spectators. We'll touch more on that in a later tip, actually. But watching online VODs, online footage of these tournaments, not only does it help you learn about the game and see how the best of the best play and all these different quirks. Like here we see like players with signed cards and how that's like sort of a fun thing that high-level players enjoy. This is actually a very old Reed Dude First Tom Ross Legacy Finals, but so you can learn a lot. You can see certain quirks. You can hear announcers and how they talk about the game and the meta game. It's a beautiful way to learn. You can see little things here like Reed Duke shuffling Tom Ross's deck, and now he's going to present it over him to cut, or he's going to cut it because he's shuffling his deck. You can cut decks, like that's another thing. Like there's so many little things you can learn by just watching old tournaments and watching things like this. You pick up a lot, and it's an underrated thing. It also just gets you excited. At least I do, man. I get hyped up. I get like, it feels like it's so passionate. The people who are doing this, people engaged in these kind of tournaments, they just love the game, dude. And there's so much beauty here, and it makes me want to get more involved in the hobby. It makes me want to buy more cards, build more decks, practice more. I think it's an underrated, like a personal motivator. It's a motivator in my opinion. Next up, tip number 12 might be kind of an obvious one, but you'd be surprised. Keep all of your Magic cards when you are new, guys. If you want to sell them, obviously, sure, but I would even just try to keep things for the most part. Keep all your cards, even basic lands. There's a term called draft chaff, which is all the uncommons and like commons and uncommons and bulk cards that aren't worth anything that some people will throw on the tables, which if you're a veteran player and you have boxes and boxes of bulk at home, it makes sense. And sometimes I will see newer players emulate the veteran players and be like, oh yeah, I don't need any of this junk. No, if you're new, you should keep the junk, guys. If you're new, it's good to look through the cards, use them to make proxies. You need every resource possible when you are new, dude. Magic is an expensive hobby. I couldn't recommend more just keeping all of your cards when you're new. Later on, when you have boxes and boxes of bulk and you don't want to fill up the space in your apartment or your house or whatever, I get it, but when you're new, keep all your cards. Next up, tip number 13. This is a hard one to understand as a new player, and I made this mistake dramatically. Tip number 13 is to let you know that you will probably play all colors of Magic the Gathering at some point. Veteran players are watching this and being like, yeah, dude, of course, duh, what are you talking about? But new players, I think it's a common misconception that new Magic players make that they kind of are like, oh, I don't really like counter spells. Blue, gross. Like, I don't really, ramping, long games, green. I don't really like that. And they kind of just end up not worrying about certain colors. People will say, I don't really like blue, so I'm just not going to collect any blue cards, no blue rares, whatever, right? And I think this goes away really quickly. I think you really learn like, oh, every single color in Magic has beauty to it, and every single color has can kind of do everything. I also feel like this philosophy has like never been more outdated. The color pie has been broken more than ever in Magic. If you don't know the color pie, it's basically that certain colors can only do certain things, but that's not really the case anymore. Green has more card draw than ever, for example. So just keep in mind, I wouldn't recommend just don't nix colors just because you think you'll never play it. Like, I don't like mono white. White is my least favorite color. I play very little white, so I do like get rid of a fair bit of white cards, but I also keep a fair bit of white cards. Like one day, if I ever want to build a mono white commander deck, I keep enough on hand so that I could do that if I need to, for example. But so just don't nix out a color entirely thinking you'll never play it, because I promise you, I bet you at one point you will. Now, there are outliers, don't get me wrong. There are some enthusiasts out there, specifically like mono black enthusiasts, I think is one of the biggest ones. If you are a super enthusiast who only will ever play mono black decks, more power to you. I think that's awesome. It's a cool niche, but for the average player, don't knock it until you try it. Next up, tip number 14. This is going to be one for simplicity, but I can see people breaking this rule if it's just not fun for you at all, which is super fair. But I would say tip number 14 is to stick with monocolored decks initially. It's just going to make things way simpler, way more streamlined. Even if it's like just your first deck, and then your second deck you want to go 2 colors, sure, more power to you. For your first deck, I would try to go monocolor and just focus on it. Makes building the land base, it makes getting all the cards that you need. It makes things way simpler in my personal opinion. So if you don't know monocolor, you know, a 1-color deck, so something that is, you know, only a green deck, only blue. I don't recommend building like blue green or black green or whatever for your first deck. And also, multicolored cards get more complicated on average. On average, multicolored cards have more complicated effects. There's more triggers to remember, which can be a lot of fun once you get your groundings in Magic the Gathering, but it's just overwhelming if you're a new player, in my personal opinion. And if you're wondering what this website is, this is EDHREC. I'm just using it to show the different monocolored commanders specifically for that format. This is a way to browse through and see, you know, different commander decks, different builds, what's being built on average, and explore a lot of cool Magic cards. Not sponsored. That is, once again, EDHREC. You can see it in the top left-hand corner as well, EDHREC. Next up, tip number 15 is going to be to learn the phases of a turn in Magic the Gathering, and this is just going to take time. Don't stress about it immediately. Don't like super worry about it. You do want to get the general feel of things, which I think can be broken down. I think this Reddit post actually broke it down better than the official Magic one, because the official Magic one doesn't even mention the upkeep, which I think is so freaking important. In Magic the Gathering, you have a few main phases, which this person highlights: begin turn, main phase. You have your main phase 1 and main phase 2. Okay, so beginning your turn, which consists of untapping, upkeeping, and drawing. Those are 3 different phases, and those are the main ones we'll talk about in the next step. Then you have your main phase 1, where you play lands, creatures, cast whatever spells you want to, and then you enter combat, and you can't cast like sorceries and things like that in combat. So you have to cast sorceries on main phase 1 or main phase 2. You have to cast creatures on main phase 1 or main phase 2. You can't play things during combat unless it's like an activated ability that says it can be used at instant speed or not sorcery, or it's like an instant spell, right? So you have your beginning turn, your main phase 1, your combat, your main phase 2 or main phase post combat, and then your end step where all creatures are healed. You pass the turn, any end step effects happen, etc., etc. Now, that's tip number 15, is just to try to familiar yourself with the phases of a turn. They really do matter. You can't really play Magic without them. Next up, number 16. This is something that I still do to this day, and some Magic players don't like this, some do, so it's up to you. I think as someone who plays legacy, vintage, high power, high level formats, I always announce my untap, upkeep, and draw phase. There are times in Magic the Gathering where an opponent is going to want to specifically cast a spell in your upkeep that may affect your draw or may affect the rest of your turn. If you just don't say anything and just silently untap your cards and then immediately draw your card and see your card, well, now you've left your opponent no chance to cast a spell on your upkeep, and that's rude. In my opinion, it's rude to them and it's disrespectful. I really like announcing untap, upkeep, draw. You don't have to sit there and wait. You don't have to be like, you don't have to sit there and wait, but I think just saying out loud untap, upkeep, draw, like pretty quickly, like maybe like 1 second a piece, maybe half a second a piece, is really nice. Some players don't like it. Some people find it annoying, I have found over the years, but as a high level player, I've always found it incredibly helpful, and a lot of high level players I've run into in legacy especially really appreciate it. It just depends on what type of table you're around, what type of players you're playing with. So that is tip number 15 and 16. 15 being learn the phases, 16 being announcing your untap, upkeep, draw phase, and announcing like enter combat, like entering combat as well can be a beneficial one. Next up, tip number 17 is going to be to actually don't buy too many commander precons. Commander precons are pre-constructed commander decks that are often used to help new players get into commander, and they're a great way to do that. I think precons are amazing, but I wouldn't recommend buying more than like 1, 2, even like 3 of these. I think one precon is honestly good, but it's going to be per person, per preference. What do you enjoy? You know, what do you want to explore? Play how you want to play. But I think often I regret it. I made the mistake. I got my wife wanted to get into Magic, and I loved Fallout, so we bought the 4 Fallout precons, and we quickly realized they're just not the most fun way to play Magic. I think they're neat, they're interesting, they get you in it, but they're just too clunky. They're not a streamlined deck. You can build better decks on your own for cheaper, but it requires more game knowledge. Maybe it depends on how many friends you have that already play Magic, things like that, but I wouldn't waste too much money on precons. I think that you just don't need too many. They're a great beginner product, but you really, really quickly outpace them. I strongly wouldn't recommend buying more than 2 to 3 of them, and even that might be a little bit too much. I'd probably recommend like 1 per player on average, honestly, then moving on to building your own custom decks, and even maybe buying the commander from the precon if you really like them and building your own deck from there. I know it's harder as a new player, but with more tools online, things like EDHREC, things like exploring your bulk, I think it's going to teach you more. It's going to be harder in the long run, or the short run. You might lose more games in the short term, but you will get so much better as a Magic player in the long run. You will learn more cards trying to build your own deck and making those mistakes versus buying a precon, which is just going to be clunky and not teach you as much, in my opinion. Next up, we touched on it earlier, but tip number 18 is going to be to draft at your favorite local store. This allows you to do a lot of things: get better at the draft format, get better at limited, support your local store, possibly win prizes, and just have a ton of fun in the process. I can't recommend draft enough to newer players. I feel like it is one of the best ways to learn Magic at a lower power level, but still get better at something. And it's a beautiful format. Draft is amazing. You build your collection. You're building your collection, getting better, and on a more fair playing field than constructed as a new player, in my opinion, than any other format. Next up, tip number 19, we're referring back to the gathering part of Magic the Gathering. Try to get your friends into Magic as best as you possibly can. It's an amazing game. They'll probably like it when they try it, but not everybody. It's not for everybody, and not everybody has the time. Not everybody wants to put the money into the game. I totally get it. Don't be annoying. Don't pressure them. Don't be pushy about it, but getting your friends into Magic is a great way for you to enjoy it more and get more in depth into it, and really get that passion fired back into it, as well as just being able to learn the game. Learning the game from scratch with another player learning it from scratch is so helpful. Being able to cross-reference, hey, what do you think this mechanic meant? Like, what did this mean? And just talking things out with people, and having someone to physically play those games with at home, not having to go to a shop to always, having that private group of friends to play with is a big difference versus always having to go to a physical public place. Next up, tip number 20, if you can't get your friends into Magic, the next best thing is to try to make friends at a local store. I know it may seem obvious, but sometimes it just takes walking up to a 4-player pot of Commander and just watching and throwing out some compliments, being like, dude, your Commander looks sick. Like, wow, nice foil of that card. Like, I love your sleeves. Cool dice bag. Magic players put a lot of effort into their collection, into their things. If you compliment them, it's kind of an easy way in to socialize and maybe make a new friend and be like, hey, like, do you guys is anyone, like, no rush or no pressure, but is anybody like leaving this pod? Do you guys mind if I get in on the next game, or you guys just playing? I don't want to bother you guys. Be nice about it, be social. Magic the Gathering, as much as our community at times may not have this in mind, but it's a very social skills orientated game. It's a very, very social game, and you will build your social skills just playing Magic the Gathering with people the more times you practice. The best part about like trying to make friends at a Magic store is everybody's already there for the same purpose. Everybody is already there to talk about a thing that they love and play a thing that they love. There's a predestined goal that makes it a lot easier. You have that way in. It makes it so much easier to meet new people. So just as nervous as you may be, and you could even say, if you tell Magic players, hey, I'm new to the store, I'm honestly really nervous, like, I'm new to Magic, I think you'll be met with so much kindness. If you were just honest and earnest and tell people like, hey, like, recently I got back into Magic over the past year or so, and I was like, hey guys, I'm new, I'm getting back into the game, I feel like I'm super behind, like, nice to meet you, like, I'm looking for a store, like, all these things. They will really appreciate that honesty, in my opinion, and they'll really appreciate you just being honest and open, and they'll welcome you with open arms. And tip number 21 is to don't be afraid to just build decks with the cards that you have. Now, sometimes you physically might not have enough cards to build a deck, and I mean, that's the point where you want to go buy a few more cards or whatever, right? But I think a lot of new players in the current age of Magic, you go through EDHREC and there's all these high synergy, most powerful, best cards. Like, I don't really have that, so I can't build that deck, or yada, yada, yada. You will get better at Magic, be a better Magic player, be a better deck builder, all of these things if you limit yourself and have these restrictions and just try to build cards with the decks with the cards that you have. I think it makes you a better player, makes you a better collector, and it will end up going much better than you realize. You end up that you don't realize you don't drop as many games as you think you would by not having the most powerful cards. Often a game of Commander especially is just so like chaotic. There's 4 people, there's way more stuff going on, there's way more RNG and weird stuff, wacky stuff that can just happen. You don't need the most powerful deck to play, to win, or to even have fun playing Commander. You can just build with what you have and go to your local store, have a blast, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot more than if you just went to TCGplayer and bought all the most powerful cards and bought like net deck the most perfect deck, and you'll have more fun just building with your collection. Tip number 22, when you go to build a new deck, I strongly recommend setting a budget before you start building that deck, and then before you even start buying cards, make a deck list and start planning out, I would say, most of your cards, like 80 to 90 of your cards at least, before you start buying cards. Sometimes players will pick up a card here and there and like kind of, you know, build their deck along the way and then realize, oh, wait a minute, I bought way too many cards, I can't fit them all in my deck. Now I'm actually not going to play this card anymore. Now you've wasted the money on that. Like, you want to plan things out properly, set a budget, have a plan when you go to build a deck like that. Use a thing like Moxfield, or I actually use Tapped Out because I'm a boomer and I'm just used to this older website. I would honestly recommend using Moxfield instead. It does seem to be the premier deck building website. We'll talk about that in more depth here in a quick sec, but planning a budget ahead of time. Hey, this is how much I want to spend on my deck, and looking through different decks that have similar budgets or similar restraints, and just keeping that in mind. You really want to have a vision in mind before you just start buying cards. Tip number 23, as a new player in Magic the Gathering, I recommend keeping all lands. When you're a new player, lands are how you cast your spells. This is what makes your decks work. It's what allows you to play the game of Magic at all. Everybody hates being land screwed, being flooded, you know, whatever. But then sometimes as new players, lands aren't flashy. I remember trading away and selling my fetch lands, you know, my Tango lands back in the day, shock lands, whatever the good lands were and had value. I would just sell them because I thought, you know, lands are boring. Who cares about lands? I'd rather have some fun, flashy, mythic rare, right? No, keep your lands as a new player. It is liquid gold. These are the most valuable cards that can go in any deck that you play the colors for. Fetch lands, especially fetch lands, surveil lands, try lands, shocked lands. You'll learn these more as time goes on, but almost any rare land, I would probably just keep, to be honest with you. It might sound like a lot of gibberish if you're new to name off all these types of lands, but in short, I would just keep lands, especially rare lands. They are expensive for a reason. You need them for almost every deck you will ever build, especially in those colors. The most powerful way to play Magic is by consistently being able to cast your spells, which you need a good mana base to be able to do. And lands have just been power crept more than ever. Lands are becoming one of the strongest cards in Magic, so do not sell off your good lands as a new player. Next up, tip number 24, don't be afraid to tell people that you're new. I think more than any hobby, I know I've touched on it previously, but I think it deserves its own slot. Magic players will probably be nicer to you. They'll probably be more patient. They might even give you extra bulk or free sleeves, which is really huge when you're new. I remember I was 16, you know, I was a new player in Magic for the most part, and I had people offering me leftover sleeves. They'd be like re-sleeving their deck for a big tournament, and they'd have these old sleeves that were still in like fine condition, and they'd be like, I was literally gonna throw these away. Do you want them? And saving that $10 to $12 when you're a 16-year-old new to Magic, it's a lifesaver. That's gonna allow you to buy more cards, like build your collection. It's a massive benefit, and players will just, I think more than any hobby, like Magic players love new players. They're literally like, hey dude, like that's awesome, like welcome, that's so cool, welcome to the game. I remember when I was new, it's one of the best feelings. It's overwhelming, it's scary, but this will probably be a lifelong hobby for you, a lifelong journey. You know, you never really quit Magic, you just take long breaks sort of situation. Tip number 25, I touched on it a little bit previously before, and it's one that I'm going to follow right after I finish this video. Make a Moxfield account or whichever deck builder you prefer. I use Tapped Out, but I think Moxfield is just the best one. Once again, I'm not sponsored by any of these companies, any of these things. I think this is just the general community sentiment. Moxfield is an amazing deck builder that lets you go through and search by many different functions. A lot of the Magic players that I follow use Moxfield. If you have content creators that you look up to and you love, you can go check out all their decks over on Moxfield. You can learn a lot. You can build your own decks. It just seems like one of the best places to really have a good catalog of all your Magic cards. And one of the more important things about having a deck builder is what we talked about. It helps you like plan out ahead of time before you start buying cards. So using a good deck builder literally saves you money. It also allows you to keep a history of all your Magic decks. If you ever take your decks apart, which will happen, and you should do, you should grow and progress over time. If you ever, that happens, you still have those deck lists, which is amazing for, number one, just historical reasons to look back, the nostalgia of seeing what you used to play, as well as if you ever want to rebuild them, you can use a deck builder to rebuild those decks you once had in physical form. All right, now tip number 26 is a little advanced, so feel free to ignore it if it is too convoluted. It most likely won't pop up, but sometimes it does, and I still want new players to be aware of it. There is something in Magic the Gathering called errata, or errata, whatever you want to call it, and this is when sometimes they go back and they basically change the text of a card, but once a card is already printed, you can't change the printed card, so these older versions of these cards, these unfixed, unerrated cards, still float around very easily and are still used in decks. So sometimes a card, it's very rare, but sometimes a card says something, it does a certain thing, and it actually doesn't. So if someone ever corrects you at a Commander game or corrects you at a game, you have to be responsive, you have to be respectful. If someone corrects you and you think you're 100% right, it's important not to go on the defensive and not be like, well, no, the card says this. Well, sometimes the card is wrong. Sometimes reading the card does not explain the card, which is kind of a joke in Magic the Gathering. One of the best examples is the companion mechanic. You can see here, this is Luris of the Dream Den, and I'm not going to explain the whole companion mechanic. Basically, it allowed you to have an extra card out of the game. The important thing here is up in this top right hand corner, you can see printed text versus Oracle text. And Oracle text is like the corrected text. Oracle text is how the card actually functions. So you can actually see here with the printed text, the way that Luris was printed, the companion mechanic. If this card is your chosen mechanic, you may cast it once from outside of the game. Well, this got changed to you have to pay 3 mana to add it to your hand. That is a massive change. This card operates in a totally different way. Instead of having to just play it, instead of having to pay 3 mana to cast it, now you have to pay 6, 3 to put into your hand and then 3 more to cast it. That is a massive difference. So unfortunately, this is one of the hardest things in Magic to explain to new players, and one of the hardest things to learn. And it comes with time, it comes with experience. Understand mistakes are going to happen. You're going to play a card and not know that it was eroded. I will say, it's not that frequent. Don't freak out. Don't be like, oh my god, I need to check every single card that I own, the printed versus the Oracle. No, it's not that common, because they don't want to do it. Like Wizards of the Coast, the company that owns Magic, they don't want to do this. Like, it's not a good thing. It's kind of like it's an oh crap button. It's like, oh wow, we really messed up, we got to fix this like really badly. It's not something that they want to do. They've done it only a few times in history, and it sucks when you got to do it, but sometimes you got to do it for the embetterment of the game, even though it makes things a lot more complicated. That is just the reality and the difficulty when it comes to balancing a physical card game. You can't unprint those cards. Once they're out there, they're out there. Tip number 27 is to play pre-releases if you can afford it, if you have the time. Pre-releases are so much fun. I know we talked about not opening packs, but if you're gonna open packs, play a game out of it. Play a pre-release, play a draft. I'm sure a lot of players, make sure to show up early if you want to do a pre-release and talk to people. Bring the things you need, bring sleeves, maybe bring dice, etc. Always play tournaments with sleeves. A lot of new Magic players may not realize you need sleeves to play at tournaments. You have to. It's like really important to legally be able to play. You need sleeves. But pre-releases are so much fun. You get this thing called a pre-release kit. It comes with 6 booster packs and usually like a little bonus card as well, an extra rare. You get a dice, and it's a fun way to open packs. It's similar to draft, but instead of like passing the pack along, you just open 6 packs and you build a deck out of those six packs. 40 cards, once again, 40 cards as opposed to 60, because it's harder to build a real proper deck with less and like limited card pool. But pre-releases are a blast, dude. They're so fun. Everybody, it's also like the best environment for new players. Not to like cringe flex too much, but as the better you get at the game, you start to see this as well. Often veteran players or like really good experienced Magic players can go to pre-releases and clean up and like 3-0, 4-0, like go undefeated. It's pretty easy because a lot of newer players and casual players come to pre-releases because it's a lot of fun, and as you should. But the better you get, you'll start to realize you can just go to pre-releases and like almost always perform pretty well. But it's a great time. I can't recommend pre-releases enough. If your local stores have them, ask them, hey, is there a new set coming up, a new pre-release? It can be stressful, it can be scary. You only have like a limited time to build your deck, so get a friend to help you out. If you or even like if you're ever doing a pre-release or doing a draft and you're like, hey, I know you're my opponent in this like fun Friday night, you know, thing. You're technically my opponent, but we're here to have fun. Could you like help me a little bit build my deck? And sometimes players will be like, I'm so sorry, I don't have enough time, I'm honestly not that good either. I gotta focus, blah blah blah. But sometimes they'll be like, yeah, I actually have a free second, or someone who's not in the event, like, yeah, I actually have a free 5 minutes. Let me come help you. Let me do your land base, you know, yada yada. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help and play pre-releases. It's a lot of fun, and don't worry about winning or losing. It's just, you're basically paying for the packs anyway. It's like 25 to 35 bucks, I believe, to do a pre-release. That's like the cost of the packs. These tournaments are fantastic because you're basically paying for the cost of the packs, and then you can win prizes on top of that if you do well, and it's a lot of fun. You can also even just do a mini pre-release at home. This is something that me and my wife do sometimes. Is I actually recently just got like older like a EDHREC and some other set, but sometimes we'll just buy 2 pre-release kits a piece and play one-on-one sealed, and it's a fun way to open packs and have a little date night with your partner or a night with friends. If you have like a group of friends, you can all, you know, let's say 4 of you get a pre-release pack. You can even play like a pod, like Commander 4-player pre-release if you want to. It'd be fun. You know, it'd be wacky. It's a lot of fun. Pre-releases are fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. Tip number 28, use TCGplayer to help you price check cards. This is usually the best way to price check most Magic the Gathering cards. This is what most card stores, from my understanding, use, but it can depend. Obviously, everybody's different. But from my 10 years of experience, most people use TCGplayer. This website and any other resources will all be linked in the description under sources, and you can just go over here and let's look up one of my favorite cards of all time, Phyrexian Dreadnought, an unfortunately expensive card these days, but you would go check it out and see, oh, like, well, this one's 138, but that's because it's moderately played and it's also direct from TCGplayer. I wouldn't look at this as the price. Ignore this. This is not the actual price. What you want to do is you want to scroll down and see, oh, the cheapest copy of Phyrexian Dreadnought is $95. That's if it's damaged. You want to make sure you can properly judge the condition of the card, whether it's lightly played, whether it's moderately played, and that's going to come with knowledge and time and experience. And maybe I should have covered that today, but we don't have time, unfortunately. If you want to look more into that, I recommend it, and I can even do a video guide on that if people are interested. I feel like that's a topic that needs its own fleshed out, like 10-minute plus video. I can't spend that here, unfortunately, but you can see the difference between, especially older cards. A lightly played Dreadnought is $164 versus a damaged one being $95. That really affects things. So you want to scroll down. Number one, look at the cards available, and then look at the condition as well. Don't just look at this price and be like, oh yeah, that's the price of the card. It's more complicated than that. You want to scroll down and really see what things are going for and actively selling for. And then once again, going back to previous websites and we've already touched on a little bit, tip number 29 is to use EDHREC to help you understand powerful combos and the best cards for your commanders sometimes. But also don't be afraid to be original and test your own brews and ignore what's popular. There's a big sentiment sometimes that EDHREC has actually been a negative to Magic the Gathering deck building by making things too homogenous and kind of everybody building the same decks, because people just kind of like go to EDHREC and see the most popular list and put that together. And I think that is kind of boring and lame, but it depends on how you use it. It's information. It's just, EDHREC is information, and you want to take information in and then do whatever output you want, right? So if you want to play things like all the goblins for Krenko Mob Boss, for things like that, you know, probably should do that, right? And what cards do you include? What are the nicher ones? You can see new cards. I recommend clicking this, high synergy cards, and probably including most of these, if not all of these. The high synergy ones are pretty important, but then going down to like different sections on the side of of EDHREC. Even scrolling down to like maybe like what are like the lesser played cards. Let's go to like you know, creatures, and scroll down towards the bottom and see which of the what goblins are lesser played, and maybe like are they interesting, are they good, are they kind of like budget options. Like this is not that great, right? Like, or you can even go over to Scryfall or other websites and just search the term goblin and try to find, you know, what's going on there and what are the cards. So there's a lot you can do to explore Magic cards, archetypes, combos, and utilizing these resources is super important in 2025. Next up, tip number 30 is to try to explore all the formats that you enjoy and find interesting to the best of your ability to find your favorite way to play Magic the Gathering. This is way more crucial than people realize. A lot of people think that they don't like Magic, but then to find out that they just didn't like the format that they were introduced to the game with. Some people really don't like Standard or really don't like 60 card formats. Commander is kind of the most popular format right now, and Commander is a great format to be the most popular. I think it's a fantastic way to get into Magic, but it's not for everybody. Some people do prefer that more consistency of standard 60 card formats, things like Standard, Modern, get really competitive, get into Legacy, but maybe you want to play but like kind of 60 card format but like fun on a budget, still somewhat competitive but a little more lower power level. Things like Pauper come into play. You could get into Vintage if you're a madman. There's so many different ways. There's old school, there is pre-modern. There's so many crazy ways to play Magic the Gathering, and finding which is your favorite way is super important. If you are at a local shop and you make friends, I wouldn't ask a stranger this, but let's say you make friends at a local shop and they have multiple decks, or you've watched them pilot this Legacy deck all day, politely at like hey, like, you know, sorry if this is like overstepping, would you mind if I like played a quick game, or could you teach me, like, you could hold the cards, I don't need to hold your cards, because Magic cards are expensive, not everybody's comfortable with you holding their cards, super understandable. Asking people to borrow a deck for a quick game, you know, in front of them, or like them walking through the deck is really important. You may not think you like Legacy. I never thought that I would like Legacy as much as I did. I thought it was like pretentious, expensive, all these things, and it is to some extent. It is expensive, not really, but like you sit down and you play, and it feels like a giant wall, and it feels inaccessible, and you sit down and you play and you're like, wait a minute, this just feels right to me. This just feels beautiful. All the complex interactions, the mechanics, the gameplay, the pacing. This is way more viable than I thought. And it's a beautiful experience to find your format. Next up, tip number 31, you can ask to watch games at your local shop as long as you're respectful and tell them that you're new. I've touched on this a few times, but it deserves its own slot. Let them know, hey, I'm new, I just want to learn, like, I'm not going to say anything. Hey, like, can I sit down and watch your guys? You probably could just say, hey, can I sit down and watch your guys' Commander game? And that, you know, and that's it, you know, just do that. Or if they're playing like a tournament, you know, just sit down and watch, don't even say anything, but just don't make any noises, you know, for a tournament, be very serious and very respectful. But if it's two people casually practicing some Legacy, practicing Modern, practicing a format, be like, hey, like, do you mind if I have this seat, like, is that okay? And they'll probably be like, yeah, of course, yeah, dude, of course, watch, you know, it's a lot of fun, like, yada yada. So a lot, just make sure if you're watching a tournament or most games, even casual Legacy or Modern or like constructed formats, or even Commander, I really don't recommend, do not ask questions about the state of the game. Just observe silently for the most part, unless you like really ask them. It's all going to depend. Everything is situational. It's all, social situations are all situational. It all depends on the vibes, and it's up to you. It's a hard thing for a lot of Magic players. It is up to you to read those vibes, read the room, and socially understand what is happening, what's the vibe, what's okay and what isn't. So I'm trying to teach you guys the general things, but you're gonna have to navigate each of these situations on your own. And tip number 32 deserves its own comment to explain why it's so bad to talk to players if they are involved in a tournament, because sometimes even the slightest comment or question can give an unfair advantage to one of the players and reveal information. Let's say, you know, don't ask, oh, like, what's that creature in the graveyard, when your opponent might have a reanimation spell and might be planning to do that, and their opponent needs to keep track of that. Like, there's so many things. Or what's that card in your hand? What's that black card? What's, you know, this? Do not, if there's a tournament going on, it's one of the most common new players' mistakes. I've made this mistake, and it is nightmarish, the stares you will get and how uncomfortable it is. It happens. Mistakes are gonna happen. Do not ruin someone's tournament, ruin someone's, you know, match, competitive element because you can't keep your mouth shut. And I'm a yapper, I get it, but if someone's playing a tournament, it's better to be quiet. Just don't even. If you really think someone's cheating or there's something like really, really wrong, you can call for a judge. You can say, hey, judge, put your hand up, judge. If there's a judge there, they'll come over, you know, whatever. If there's not a judge, usually it's the store owner, but it depends. A judge is a magic, like, kind of sub-judge. It's a whole complicated thing. It's basically someone who knows the rules of the game to a deep degree to be able to resolve disputes like that. But if you're watching a tournament, just stay quiet, just silently observe, and you know, take some space as well. Don't overcrowd the players, and just be as quiet and respectful as possible. Don't even whisper to like your fellow like spectators like that. Sometimes you overhear things and that reveals information. Do not do this. It is a big no-no in Magic communities. Tip number 33, if you have a mechanics question or a question about Magic the Gathering and you're not like involved in a game, or maybe it's a casual commander game, go ahead and go for this. Don't be afraid to ask people, dude. I think experienced players especially, ask experienced players or a judge that's around. Maybe there's a player of commander, a pod of commander players behind you also playing a game. You know, they're a bit more experienced, and you're having a problem in your casual game and you don't know what's supposed to happen, what rules, what, you know, happens, right? There is nothing that Magic players love more than trying to parse out complicated rules interactions. I promise you, veteran players love finding these super weird, insane situations with random cards that have crazy mechanics. I put Sylvan Library up on the screen because it is probably one of the most like judge called cards in Magic history. Complicated cards to parse out what's happening, what card goes where, with extra draw effects, Hammer's Archive, etc., etc. So don't be afraid to ask experienced players questions about specific mechanics. If you don't know what's supposed to happen in your game and something, you know, ask a player, explain the state of the game, explain what happened, and they will probably love parsing it out for you. Tip number 34 is that I do think MTG Stocks is a good resource to be aware of. This is a website that covers the market and the price changes of all Magic cards. I would not worry about it too much if you are new. If you're new, don't worry about buying a card now because it's going to go up in price, or selling a card because it's going to tank, blah, 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 blah. Like, I think it's worth mentioning, and you should be aware of MTG stocks, but I don't recommend treating Magic as stocks or investments for 99.9% of people. Go do your Roth IRA, go do your 401k, do your safe stuff, guys. Make your real investments right before you start investing in collectibles like Magic the Gathering. Just play the game, have fun. It's a cool thing to be aware of. I love it. I get loving markets. I love markets. I love looking at it. I love exploring it, but don't let it overtake your hobby. Don't let it overtake the game itself, in my personal opinion. But it's up to you. Maybe that's what you prefer long term. More power to you. But just something to keep in mind. MTG Stocks is a good resource. Keep in mind, it's information, and then you want to filter that information how you see fit. Next up, tip number 35, a bit of a layered one. You should try to buy from your local shops whenever you can, especially the shops that you like and you spend time at. You should want to support them. You want to basically support paying for that play area, right? It costs them money in rent every single month. It depends. If a card, I always say, like, if a card, it depends on your situation. If a card is like $30 on eBay versus $32 at your local shop, I think it's usually just worth it to spend the extra $2 to basically pay for you to have a clean, fun play space and a community gathering spot for you and your friends or other people. Magic shops are amazing things, and most people running them are doing it out of pure passion because there's just not as much money in Magic shops as much as other retailer stores. The margins in a normal retail store is much higher than a Magic the Gathering shop. Having said that, you don't owe anyone anything, especially if you don't really have a local store that you connect with, or the local store didn't treat you well. Like, that does happen. Everyone's also in different financial situations, and Magic is already a really expensive hobby. So do what you can afford is really important. There is no wrong option. You should never shame somebody or be shamed for buying things cheaper online. But if you can support your local shop and the price is close enough, if not under, you know, a lot of times they'll try to price under online to give you an incentive and a benefit, a reason to shop there, right? If they can get it for a good price from the distributor. Buying from your local shops whenever you can, but also don't feel the pressure and the need to. That's lame. And tip number 36, don't play a ton of cards on your turn super fast back to back. Magic is a complicated game, and you want to give people a few seconds to contemplate any sort of instant speed interaction, whether it's a counter spell, removing a permanent in response to the cast of a spell. I think asking people, especially in Commander, hey, is there any response to this? Any responses is usually good communication. But once again, kind of back to the announcing your upkeep, untap, upkeep, draw, some salty players will see it as BM or disrespect. So just be socially aware of what's going on. But I think if you're playing like super casual Commander and people are having a conversation while you're trying to take your turn, just announce, hey, I'm playing Hedron Archive. Hey, I'm playing Soul Ring. I'm playing these cards. And if they want to talk while you're playing and you announce it loud enough, that's on them to focus and pay attention, right? So at a certain point, just play your game. It's a find the right balance sort of social situation. Once again, a lot of social skills in Magic the Gathering. Asking any responses, playing cards, whatever, I think is really, really good. You don't want to have to enter a situation where like you play 10 cards and then the 10th one wins the game and your opponent is like, wait, what happened this turn? Like it's on them to pay attention, and it's on you to announce your spells as well and give a little bit of time for people to respond. More social skills conversation. Number 37, read the room. Magic is a very social game, and I know it's kind of silly for it to be an entire tip, but I think it's important. If you're playing Commander and someone is mana screwed, for example, they're mana screwed, they're slumped in their chair, they're bummed out, maybe don't cast that land destruction spell on them. It's all depend, like, unless you're trying to win unless you're in a tournament and you are trying to win, you never need to feel bad about that. You never need to feel bad about anything in terms of your gameplay in a tournament. Your goal is to win. That's your job, right? But the average Commander game, a casual Commander game, understanding people's emotional state is pretty important, in my opinion, for better games and overall more fun. But it's all about context, of course. It depends on the friend group, depends on the kind of person. There could be a different person who's mana screwed and like being like, oh, this is so funny, my deck's giving me no lands, whatever. And then that person has 2 lands, you cast the land destruction spell on them, and it's just like they throw their hands in the air and they're like, oh, of course. Like, there could be a funny moment as well. Like, certain friend groups could find it hilarious to set that friend further back, and the person being set back could have a lot of fun. I've been on both sides of that coin, where I'm already screwed, I'm out of the game, and I know that, and people are even screwing me harder, and it's kind of funny. Like, it's just a comedic thing with the right friend group, of course, versus like, okay, dude, like, come on, like, what are you, I'm literally here AFK, what are you doing? So just read the room, understand, don't hold back. Like, if someone, don't hold back. It's really extreme situations. I wouldn't say like, don't not kill someone's commander because they're bummed out. It's the game. You gotta kill their commander, it depends, but like, don't be crazy, but just it's ever gonna be dependent. It's gonna be social situations, and reading the room. That's the tip number 37. Tip number 38, try not to be a sore winner or a sore loser. It's kind of obvious, but you'd be shocked at how many men in their 30s and 40s would refuse to shake my hand after I beat them at Magic the Gathering when I was only 16. Shake hands, bump fists, whatever you want to do. Try to be as respectful as possible after a game. And on the other hand, I will say, don't be overly apologetic if you win. This is a problem that I had when I was 16, and I felt bad when I would beat people, beat adults who've been playing Magic their whole life. I would say sorry after beating them, and that came off to a lot of people as disrespectful, and that would hurt their feelings even more. And just so you gotta read the room. That was a social skill issue on my end, right? We all make mistakes. No one's perfect. Those mistakes are gonna happen. Try to learn from my dumb mistakes and learn from your own mistakes, and just try to stop repeating them. Next up, tip number 39. MTG Goldfish, in my opinion, is one of the best resources to learn the metagame of different formats. If you want to take competitive Magic seriously, it is crucial to learn the metagame, learn what decks you're going to be playing against a lot of the time. This was a crucial resource that taught me so much when I was getting into Legacy. Not only do you learn more cards, you learn the best cards, the most played cards, and you have to practice and figure out how to play against those and how to counter those things. You don't have to play the meta decks and the best cards in Magic the Gathering to do well, but you do need to know how to beat the meta. I think that's one of the most important things to learn if you want to be a serious Magic player. You don't need to play meta, you do need to beat meta. Next up, tip number 40. This might be a hot take, but I recommend do not play MTGO unless you have to. This is Magic the Gathering Online. This is actually the online client that has almost all the Magic cards, if not all the Magic cards ever printed. You can play competitive Legacy, Vintage on here, all the formats, right? But the problem is that number one, it's super expensive. It's another really expensive way to play Magic, and Magic's already expensive. Having an MTGO collection, or some people call it Moto MTGO, whatever, it's hard to build both. It's really hard to build both MTGO and a physical collection, especially if you're new. People mostly use Moto to play things like Legacy, Vintage, Popper, like niche formats that's really hard to find players for, depending on where you live. So if you want to play Legacy and you literally don't have a Legacy like local scene, you might need to play on Moto. Like sometimes you kind of have to play on Moto to really be able to play Magic games, but it just depends. If you just want to play Commander, I really don't recommend playing on Moto. If you have to for your distant internet friends, more power to you. I would still recommend Arena, honestly, but it depends. Depends on how you use it. It's clunky, it's expensive, it's laggy, it's like a really archaic, and I've been playing it for 10 years. I've been playing for a long time. It's expensive, clunky, laggy, super archaic. It is just not, it's really sad. It's sad and unfortunate that Magic the Gathering does not really have, in my opinion, I think a lot of people's opinions, doesn't really have a perfect online client. It does not have a good online client. MTG Arena is getting better and better, but Moto is just, it's a rough relic of the past, in my opinion, as someone who watches a lot of MTGO content every day. All right, and for tip number 41, we are back to another quick physical collector's tip, and this is these deck boxes. You can get these clear or even like slightly grayed out, slightly tinted deck boxes for really cheap on Amazon. They end up being about like a little under $3 a piece. There'll be a link in the description, and they do the trick when you're new, or if you like don't care about pimping out your accessories. If you want to, upgrade in the future, that's awesome. Or you want to, you have the money to spend from the get-go on more expensive deck boxes, more power to you, man. But I think if you're a beginner, I still have a bunch of these. I still use them. Like even for me, like with expensive decks, Legacy decks, whatever, I still put them in these deck boxes. They do the job for me, in my opinion. They're plenty fine. They get a little smudged. It's gonna be per person. Like, what do you care about? What do you value? Right? They're not amazing. They're just a really decent, really solid budget option, in my opinion. All right, next up, tip number 42. This is just my opinion, so please do whatever you feel is best, but I don't recommend buying dice sets like this. People love these like ChessX branded dice sets. Sure, they're nice dice and they're all the same color. They come in this little acrylic cube, which a lot of people like to keep them in, and yada yada yada. Personally, I don't think it's a good value. I don't think it's a good deal. People always end up losing one as well. That's like if you end up losing one, now the whole cube is like messed up, doesn't look as good. You bought it for the aesthetic, and now it's ruined anyway. It's up to you, but you can get random assortments and like dice lots for way cheaper, or even like this like budget brand, you get 100 dice for $12, $13, or the ChessX for it's 12 dice, right, for $11. Like I don't recommend that. I think dice are one of those, you can get a really good deal on them. This is 100 random dice you want a bunch. I also think it's more fun. I also prefer the random dice segments, but the random grab bags. But that's up to you personally. What do you prefer? Do you like the coherence of the dice sets? More power to you if you do. I see these a lot at local Magic shops, and I don't recommend buying them personally, but it's up to you. Next up, tip number 43. I actually recommend getting a life counter, a life tracker application on your phone, on your smartphone. I guess we all have smartphones nowadays, right? But so hopefully, I would get a counter app. If you don't, you could use a piece of pen and paper. We'll talk about that more in details in a quick sec, but a lot of people use D20 and dice when they're new to Magic or kind of getting into it, and it is fun. I honestly really enjoy it, and if you enjoy it, do it, right? But a D20 is just suboptimal nowadays, in my opinion. A D20 can get bumped, it can get rolled, it can get messed up in so many ways. It's just not as reliable as putting your phone down on the table and having it be a flat surface and tapping it up if you need to. If you want to get really sweaty, like I talked about, if you want to get really sweaty, play, the tournament grinders usually use pen and paper because you can see all the life total changes over the course of the game, and also take notes on any important information. Like if you thought sees your opponent, if you see the cards in their hand, you can write down all the cards in their hand and have that information and track that for the rest of the game if you want to. So if you want to get sweaty, pen and paper, D20 if you like it, if it's fun for you, but generally I'd recommend a life counter application. I don't even have a specific one to recommend. They're all pretty similar, to be honest, in my experience. They're all just going to track a number for you and not be able to get rolled. Tip number 44, kind of a funny one, but Facebook groups, dude, do not sleep on it. Magic the Gathering might be one of the few hobbies that like really utilizes Facebook groups, whether for good deals, like MTG Sick Deals is a famous one. MTG Sick Deals, your local shop might have a Facebook group. I remember I remade a Facebook when I was like 16. I deleted mine at one point, but when I was like, I made a Facebook just so I could interact with like my Magic friends and be involved in that community, because a lot of people, it's a very local physical hobby. A lot of people communicate through Facebook groups. Sometimes you can only find out that local shops exist via Facebook groups. So browse some Facebook groups if you want to get into the Magic the Gathering community. Tip number 45 is to buy staple cards before you buy your niche cards. Now, it depends. If you're building a deck and you're really focused on something, more power to you. But this really comes down to, there are certain cards that are only going to be usable or playable in certain decks. I think right now, Geth's Grimoire, and I love this card, is a great example. You are going to play Geth's Grimoire in like a commander deck that wants to make people discard cards. Whenever an opponent discards a card from his or her hand, you may draw a card. It's a pretty niche effect that you don't want in a lot of most commander decks, right? Versus, and that's like a $8, $6, $7, $8 card, versus Swords to Plowshare, the best removal spell ever printed in Magic the Gathering. Arguably, it's about $1 to $2. This is like also like a different, you can get different printing for a bit cheaper. I like this one honestly the best, or this kind of older, I like the old style of the farmer with his scythe. Swords to Plowshare. This card is going to go in every white deck you ever build where it's legal. Legacy, it's a 4 of. Every white commander deck you ever build, you're probably putting a Swords to Plowshare in there, right? It's that good. You want some package of removal. So if you're choosing between the two, you know, you gotta get staples over the niche cards that only fit in certain archetypes or certain decks. Tip number 46, we're getting a little bit more specific, a little bit more nuanced. I know I said to focus on monotype decks at first, which you should do, and I also said to not sell off all blue cards because you hate counter spells. Now we're in the middle stage. I would say, you know, just trying to pick a few colors and expand on at first. That doesn't mean, you know, go sell all your blue cards because blue isn't in the 2 to 3 colors you pick, but you want to maybe only buy cards from 2 to 3 colors at first. I would recommend picking 2 to 3 colors to focus on at first is the important phrase there, right? Maybe you really like green. Okay, so you start with green. Well, now you're really enjoying black. Okay, so now you go green black. You try to buy as many good green black cards as possible, go into those, and then if you want to expand into like blue, then you can do Sultai, which is green black blue, or you can do black and blue Dimir, or green and blue, which is Simic. Like, you can do all these different combinations. If you focus on 2 to 3, it's gonna help you collect, get more cards, get powerful cards, versus trying to build 5 color, trying to build a white deck. I don't recommend trying to build, when I say monocolor, don't go build a white deck, a green deck, a red deck, a blue. I think it's too much. If you want to do like really shitty versions or really bad, really scrappy decks to just learn what those colors do, more power to you. But I would say pick 2 to 3 colors to really focus on. That doesn't mean you can't buy cards from other colors, but focus on it first. Next up, tip number 47. When building a commander deck specifically, since it is the most popular format, I do want to talk about it. I would start with 40 lands at a base level and then adjust from there. Some decks might want to go down to 36, 35, even as low as like 34 lands. It's pretty rare. Usually the bigger mistake that I see newer players make, I think this is a common sentiment, is newer players cutting lands for fun cards. And then you can't cast your cards. You don't have enough lands. You're not hitting your land drops. And now you're losing the game. You can't play the game. You can't play your fun cards. You're not having fun. If you can't hit your land drops, you can't cast your spells. I think it's one of the quickest ways to not have fun in Magic the Gathering. It is going to depend though. There are decks like Omnath, Locus of Rage, where you might want 45, 46, maybe 50 lands, right? A landfall based deck. But then decks like EDHREC, where you might want 36, 30, it depends, right? I would say start with 40. I think 40 is that magic number. Start with 40, play test the deck, or if you want to adjust a little bit, you know, from the get-go, go for it. Every one land really matters. The difference between a deck with 39 lands versus 40 is pretty huge, just anecdotally from my experience, how it feels at least. Or like 38 versus 40 is like two different whole decks. Like it's a massive difference to cut 2 lands from your commander deck. So just start at 40 lands and adjust from there. Tip number 48, don't be afraid to proxy cards, especially when you're new. Just make sure that people are aware of it and okay with it. Make sure that your play pod is okay with it before you do that kind of thing. If you don't know, proxying a card is basically putting in a fake magic card. It's like either writing on a card, like sharpieing a card to write what the card does, and just pretending you own that card. I can speak as a competitive player and a very serious player at times, not anymore, I'm washed up, but the best players in Magic all proxy cards because you have to practice, to play test. If you want to be the best, you've got to be proxying cards, proxying up decks. You can't afford to buy every single deck out there. You proxy up a deck, you practice it, you see how it plays. And if you're going to spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on a legacy deck, you better bet that we are proxying up those decks first and playing them and practicing before to see if we even like them, right? That's really important. I do think in Commander, it's a bit, I don't recommend, you don't want to be that new player who just proxy up their entire deck, or if you think what your friend group is doing, more power to you. It's a read the room situation and just not running away with it socially. I would say proxy up some cards, see how it feels. Most people still want to build a collection. It's finding that fine balance. You don't want to treat proxies like a cheat code where if you grew up playing like PS2 games or older games, you enter a cheat code for like The Sims and you give yourself infinite money, and now the game's no longer fun. Now you've like destroyed all the enjoyment, all the grind of the game, because now no achievement means anything. But maybe you're playing Tony Hawk and you put in an achievement that makes it so the timer disappears, so you can just run around in free state before that was a mechanic. Well, okay, that, you know, that could make sense and allow you to like play the game and have fun. So just proxy responsibly is what I would say. Proxy responsibly, but don't be afraid to proxy as well and explore things. But you don't want to be that person who proxies all the most expensive cards in the game because they're super powerful and all these things, when all your friends are just having a fun time and just not worried about it like that. Tip number 49. We are almost there, fellas. Tip number 49. Don't be afraid to net deck. I do notice that a lot of new players are afraid sometimes to net deck. You want to, everything's about balance. Everything on this list is situational. It's all about balance, just like life. You want to know when to net deck, when to take that information. And like, if you're going to a tournament and you want to be what's called a spiky player, a serious player, a competitive player, and win, don't be afraid to net deck, dude. Everybody else is going to be doing it at tournaments. It is really hard. It is way harder to do well at a tournament. It is harder with a non-neck deck versus a neck decked one, but it depends on what kind of player you are, right? Depends what kind of player you are. Don't be afraid to net deck, but understand the time and the place. If you're going to a tournament, you better be net decking to some extent and maybe changing things, adjusting to your metagame, etc., etc. And if you're a commander player, don't be afraid to go see what are the best cards on EDHREC and get some of those best synergies, but don't necessarily copy a deck one-to-one. But if you want to do that, if that's how you have fun and your other friends don't mind, don't be afraid to do that either. Once again, it just all depends. And then tip number 50, the final one, is to watch Magic the Gathering content creators. There are so many people with decades of experience in the hobby. I've been playing for over 10 years, so 12 years at this point. There are people who have been playing for 20, 30 years. The game's been out for so long. There are people who are more than willing to pass down their knowledge to those new players. Magic content creators will save you time, money, and prevent you from having to make the same mistakes that they made 25 years ago. But man, oh man, we did it. We made it to the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I severely hope there was at least one tip, hopefully a few, that you found helpful. If there was, make sure to like the video. It is the best way to support that, and subscribing. I would really love to reach 1,000 subscribers on this passion project, fun channel for me. I adore it. If you want to see more Magic content like this and motivate me and to make it possible for me to make this content, subscribing is the best way to do it. And that's really it. Just have fun, play Magic, have a blast, and thank you so much for watching. Why'd you look?